And we're live, brother. How you doing, man?
Hey, pretty good, man. It's been a roller coaster, week. I think, obviously today. Actually, before we get that little story time, Jeremy's here. He's been by himself for the last couple of days. I had to check on him, make sure he's been eating and stuff. His wife, our producer, is currently up in Michigan with family, and Jeremy was talking about his little list of grocery list. Man, you got that grocery list real quick, man? That's I think it's like 6 items. That's his grocery list for the grocery store. I think he has to make it between now and Monday, right? If you make it to Monday, you'll survive.
Yep, she gets back on Tuesday.
Okay. Woo. Okay. All right. Now we can get into football news. Obviously, the SEC unanimously 14-0 vote. Figured one school may say no or at least abstain for making a vote altogether to formally invite the University of Texas and that team up north, University of Oklahoma, into the SEC. It's happening. And I think both schools tomorrow have 9 o'clock meetings with the regents to go ahead and confirm that. And then all of a sudden it'll kind of be blast off, man. I think the only thing that's keeping us from actually moving out in 22 is really the money. The money and what are the other schools going to do? I think David Allen on Twitter put out, I like the coin phrase he uses. It's the irate eight is
Yep.
what he calls them. I thought it was beautiful this morning when I see that, man. I was like, you can't pick a better word for those 8 other teams, man. Your thoughts on us and our invite to the SEC?
Yeah, we kind of knew this was going to happen. We got word last night that the board of regents from Texas A&M told the president to vote yes. 14-0 vote. Now the question is, and the irate eight comes from 1049. The afternoon show's been using that all week. Brad Kellner, Kevin Dunn, and Rod Babers, who happens to be out of the office this week, getting married. Congratulations, Rod, on that. But yeah, just how now the question is, how soon can we get there? Like you said, how do we buy out of this system? Is it us paying the $75 million to get the roll out? Is it the other 8 teams, as you described them? Do they go other places like the AAC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12? The Big 12 dissolves, which absolves us from having to pay that $75 million departure fee, I would say, and get on to 2022, because that's what I know me and you are really looking at. We really don't think that 25 is an option. It's probably 22 or 23.
Yeah, I just want to tell Bobby. It seems like he may be a SEC guy, man. We appreciate you listening to us, really, as an SEC fan there from another school. We appreciate you listening to us, man. And me and Jeremy were actually talking about that today, man. You see a lot of, and I want to make this clear from where we stand at, where Texas Football Talk stands at. I think there's a difference between being motivated to go into a conference, but understand where you've been at for the last 10 years. And I think humility comes with that. But I don't think we should fear any team that in the SEC. But at the same time, I read an article today that talked about what 3 teams should fear Texas going into the SEC, and I don't think any team should fear SEC. I mean Texas. It's to the point from what they've done over the last 10 years, man. But I think definitely welcome to the show. Appreciate you listening to us, Bobby. I'm not sure what your team is, but definitely throw that out there, man. We'd definitely be interested in knowing. So.
No, yeah, from that conversation we had about an hour before the show as you were driving home from work, was absolutely what you just said. You're one of 16 teams, and I knew you said it that way. And then I kind of talked about with our Stewcast collaboration how Vegas kind of thinks that we're on par with at least 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10 teams, and there's only 3 or 4 teams that they really feel like would beat us on a neutral field in 2021. So like you said, we don't need to be feared by anyone within the SEC. They've been playing in that conference for a long time. We recognize it has been the number 1 conference in college football for a long time. And so we're just going over there to be able to compete with the best. And again, we should not be feared, and we should not fear anyone, because we, like you said, the last time we matched up with an SEC opponent was the Sugar Bowl, and I thought we had a pretty good account for ourselves and played pretty well in that game against Georgia. So yeah, just excited to get over there and start competing with those guys.
Yeah, definitely excited, man. I think going back to this whole money thing, man, is what do you do? What does ESPN do with the LHN? And I think LHN is going to go away. I think that's dissolved into that contract, and I think currently they owe you somewhere around $15 million a year over the next, I think, till 2031. Does that get dissolved into that money, and is that money used as a way to buy yourself out of the Big 12, man? It's crazy because the Big 12 is fighting tooth and nail, man. Like, cease and desist orders and hey, stop talking to these guys and you're not going to do this. And, 8 guys going to the AAC just to dissolve the Big 12 so that Oklahoma and Texas don't have to do it, So I'll let the lawyers do lawyer things, man. I can tell you working in a compliance, I do healthcare compliance, and I can tell you anytime you're reaching out to a lawyer, they're happy because they're getting paid, man, by the hour. And they get a hefty fee when it comes to that. So their billable hours, between the Big 12 and probably the Texas and Disney. And again, you're going up against Disney, not just going up against ESPN. You're going up against Disney, man, which is a high-powered organization, man. So we'll kind of see where that goes as far as the schools go. But it's definitely
totally
exciting.
agree. Yeah, whatever the exit strategy is, whether it's paying that $75 to $80 million, and again, it's not our money, so we're not going to tell anybody how to spend it, or the league dissolves and they don't have to pay it. Just like to get over there as soon as possible, because again, it helps in recruiting. Once you move over to the SEC, you have that pitch that all these other SEC teams are able to take advantage of at this current time.
Yeah, I think but again, I think this other piece of this whole move, and we'll get into fall ball. I mean, fall ball here in a minute. Obviously that's going to start, next week on the 6th. Probably when I think they arrive on the 5th and probably start practicing on the 6th. Is how you're treated, man, by these fan bases. In these visiting ballpark, visiting stadiums as you go each and every week because. Oklahoma and Texas are going to have bullseyes on their backs each and every week, man. And I think that's what's going to make this season exciting. But you would love to have some kind of closure, and I think it's probably going to go on for a while. And then all of a sudden, they're going to Big 12 is going to be angry, and the commissioner is going to be angry, and then all of a sudden it's going to be like, hey, let's let these guys settle, and then they settle and pay their money because I just can't see the eight teams that are going to be paid $35 million a year over the next 4 years, just popping smoke to go to a Group of 5 conference where they're probably going to be paid a quarter of what they're being paid just to stick around for 4 years. But the problem is what happens if you stick around for 4 years? Have you lost an opportunity to move to another conference if this one dissolves altogether?
Yeah, totally agree. But unfortunately that's where they're at, is trying to get into the Pac-12, Big 10, ACC. At this point, trying to show a good account of themselves. And this may be that year for them to be able to market themselves and say, hey, this is what we're able to bring to your conference. Because like you said, I don't think they're going to jump ship to the AAC if they're going to lose money, in the short term and in the long term. So yeah, those decisions need to get made by the Texas Techs, the Baylors, the TCUs, the Kansas States, and those folks to put themselves in the best position going forward.
Is everybody there? I think May have lost us for a few minutes there. That's the first time that's happened on this new content stream called StreamYard. But I think we're back. I think, we started talking about LHN streams and, what's going to happen with the money. And then all of a sudden our stream goes kaput. But I think we're back now. So y'all please let us know if you can hear us and let us know that we're live. Just so that we know that we're good to go. So that was a little weird, but hey, we're back. We did get we got a $5 super chat while we were gone for Wes Bearden. I'll go ahead and pull that up here.
Yeah, thanks, Wes. Really appreciate that. You didn't even get it, Clint? I get it.
You got it there?
Yeah, here we go.
Forgive me for disregarding the tortilla tossers, but after today, I can't wait for the TCU game. That is going to be a war. I think going out a positive against TCU is what we need to do. The way we've been treated by TCU over the last couple of years, it's definitely left a nasty taste in your mouth. But I think having a going out, on top against that one opponent that you've had a hard time beating. Since you've been in the Big 12, it is definitely one that I'm excited for. And TCU's going to have a good ball. They're going to have a good ball club, man. They got I think 18 players coming back on that team. They got Max Dugan, their starting quarterback's going to come back. He's giving us problems, but definitely that place is going to be really, really, really crazy when we get there.
Yeah, you got to travel to Fort Worth. You got to, like you said, you got to face Max Duggan, who's given UT defenses nightmares over the last couple of years. And then, of course, Gary Patterson's always going to have his defense primed. And he's, they're a team that me and Clint see as being that top four with Iowa State, Texas, Oklahoma and TCU being that top four, and then Oklahoma State on down is probably that second tier of teams. Of course, Oklahoma State can find themselves in that same tier with the rest of those groups, but everybody else I think is a step below. But yeah, go out with the win against TCU, set yourself up for success going forward.
And as I look at it, we have we're at Arkansas. Obviously, that's going to be a big game on ESPN at night against a team that you're going to be facing either next year or between now and 2022 and 2025 that you're probably going to either be in a pod with or on the same side of the conference with in the SEC and in the Arkansas Razorbacks. That then you're going at TCU. Baylor's going to be another one. They're nasty. They're mad. They're angry. They've got politicians involved at this particular point. That are headed up to Austin to talk to the governor about, hey, why are you letting this happen? I guess he threw them a hook'em sign as they were walking out the door. So I don't think that went over very well. They'll definitely pretty excited. And then obviously you're at Iowa State, which, Ames, Iowa against Iowa State. Going to be probably a night game, November 6th. They'll probably have their All Blacks on. Go ahead, Jeremy.
No, yeah, because we're going to do a season preview, and Clint's kind of walking down the schedule to do that. But yeah, you've already created the bulletin board material for every team that you're going to play this year in the Big 12. Like, that's done. So if they needed a reason to come beat you, or when you got there to show up in full force, I mean, Texas is always circled the game on your schedule. I think for most Big 12 teams, we're rivaled with everybody in the conference. But if they needed extra ammunition or extra want to beat you, they now have it. You've created bulletin board material for every team in the league.
Yeah, and then at West Virginia, yeah, we're I think probably not this week, but probably 2 weeks into fall camp. About 2 weeks into fall camp, we'll go ahead and break down once we kind of get an idea of what's going on,
what the depth chart looks like,
what the depth chart, what the football team looks like, what injuries look like. About 2 weeks into fall camp, we'll probably give you an idea of probably go through our schedule breakdown in a podcast, a tape podcast. I guess that's a good kind of let's talk a little fall football.
Okay. Yeah. So practice starts on August the 6th. And from the story I read today, all players are going to be healthy. It looks like Ben Davis is going to be over his foot injury, and everybody's going to have a full bill of health. Let's just hope that maintains itself through fall camp. And we don't have any injuries that we're working through. Like Clint said, that first game against Louisiana, tough opponent, and then on to Arkansas. But yeah, just excited for next week to pretty much get it started. I think that's next Saturday. So a week from Saturday, players report on Friday, and then practice starts on Saturday. Probably going to go through a couple of non-contact practices to start, and then put the pads on and get after it.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Jeremy. Finish your thought.
No, I was just saying that because right now we're at full staff because. I mean, they had an opportunity to put in their systems in the spring, but this is tightening it up. So you hope everybody's able to get those reps. Nobody catches an injury, and that we're able to get both offense and defensive systems in by the time that September 4th rolls around.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is from an injury standpoint. I think it's big time that you have 100% of your football team that's ready to go into fall practice. You're going to make sure that you put a couple of probably red jerseys on a couple of guys once it gets started getting closer to the season. There's a couple of guys that you probably don't want to get nicked up. One probably being Bijan. They'll probably limit the amount of hits that he gets as he gets closer to the season. Obviously, if you plan on, obviously running him, 20 to 30 times a game, you'll probably limit how much he gets as far as contact during the fall, heading into that first game with Louisiana. But really, I think that's what I'm looking for is let's limit the injuries. Let's limit the injuries. Let's, like Jeremy said, you had a spring, so you had an opportunity to install both the offense and the defensive side of the ball. I think getting guys to run plays over and over again, that's really the way Sark's offense works is limiting how many plays you have and getting those plays, those really, really good plays, getting high snap counts with those things so that it becomes muscle memory when it's time to go through your progressions of 1, 2, and 3. And then what everybody else is waiting on is what's going to happen with the quarterback position. Who to start, pick, leading us into that first game. And then when you're talking about PK's defense, same thing, run through snaps. Give the offense something to look at that they haven't looked at in the spring, to cause some, iron sharpening iron type situations. But really excited about fall, man. Really excited about this coaching staff and really excited to see what development we can see from last year to this year with this football team.
Yeah, totally agree. Somebody was asking about, and I'm sure there's stuff that we're going to go up and catch a little bit later. Do you guys see the picture of Jay Witt? Dude looks super slim. I want to go back to training conditioning under the past regime. Yancey McKnight was the strength coordinator, and from what we understand, he trained everybody the same way. Same strength tests and same strength conditioning the running backs got, the wide receivers got, and then the linemen got, and linebackers and such. But no, Jay Witt came in, and if you remember, 21 was his original number, and he was, when he came to campus, was playing running back. So he had to have a little bit of that extra body armor on him when he came to the program. But now that he's outside and playing slot receiver again, he's got to slim up, because that position's two-way go. Got to work on his quickness. Can't be as thick as what he was when he was in the running back room. So he's slowly gotten moved from that running back body to that slot receiver.
Yeah, again, to me, he's going to be, running back, probably going to line him up at running back in a 2 running back set, be able to push him out. Same thing they'll probably be able to do with Keelan Robinson. Same thing they'll probably be able to do with Xavier Worthy. I'm excited to see what some of these packages are for these really, 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 really athletic, speed guys that we currently have on the 40 that we have not seen over the last couple of years. You're talking about a guy that Xavier Worthy can run a 10-2. You're talking about a guy that in Jordan Whittington that can catch a ball out of backfield, can line up as a running back, that is an athlete. And I think the same thing you're going to see from Keelan Robinson. I think your 2 running backs are going to be Bijan Robinson, who obviously is going to, be able to go out there and catch, passes as well. And then Roschon Johnson as well. It's almost thunder and lightning with those 2. So really
I did want to go back real quick to fall camp, because I know that Steve Sarkisian conducted, and this is where your coaches are going to see who's putting in the work. I know he did exit interviews with each and every player before they left spring ball. So this evaluation period that you're going to get these first 2 weeks, he's going to see who's been working, who's been in the weight room, who's been paying attention or getting in the playbook, who's been doing the work since they left us, in April to now. So it's the players' first impression to the coaches, who's all in and who's ready to go, based upon their performance the first couple of weeks in practice, in my mind.
Yeah, I don't think exactly what they're going to do. They're going to go out there and see who's acting like pros, during the offseason, who's taking the book, who's gone out there and, especially from the quarterback, hey, I want you to go out there and work on these weaknesses. Have you went out there and worked on your weaknesses? Do the wide receivers coming in know what the route tree looks like? Kyle Flood probably asked the offensive lineman to go out there and work on, specific, technical skills that he's currently, teaching. If you go off, watch some of the offensive line film that he's kind of put out there. But to me, and I left that off, man, that offensive line, what does it look like at the end of fall camp? Is it, because there's a bunch of moving pieces that we're hearing 8, 9 guys may be ready to fill into that number one, those number one positions, but we'll kind of see where that kind of plays itself out. Where does Kerstetter play? Inside, outside? Where does, Christian Jones, is he going to be on the left? He's going to be on the right. Who's center and all these other things, man. I'm really excited to see what Kyle Flood does with this offensive line. So
yeah, like similar to what we said last year when we started the season, you want 8 or 9 guys. You want your 5 to separate themselves, that starting group. And talk about injuries, that's the place on the football team where we need to limit injuries. Is in the offensive line and probably in the linebacker core, because we sense that the depth may not be there. But I hope that we have 5 good guys that kind of solidify themselves and that they get to work all year together with each other. And then you got 3 or 4 more that if you had to bring them in the game to spell one of these guys for an injury or something like that you're comfortable with bringing them to the game and not having that far of a drop off. So yeah, that's really a position that I'm going to be looking closely at, like you said, once fall camp begins.
Yeah. Just want to pull up this comment from Odd Future real quick. Pros and cons to everything. Hopefully none of our defensive backs get trucked this year, since our offseason was more focused on explosion and strength. And I go back to look and see what Josh Thompson looks like. If you look at pictures of these defensive backs, I don't think they've lost any, muscle whatsoever. I think what it's worked on is more, agility.
Agility and endurance.
Yeah, flipping hips. Flipping hips is a big one if you're looking at as far as defensive backs and being able to get back in backpedal and so on and so forth. So I don't think we're going to see an issue with the strength of the defensive backs. I think that strength's already been there. I think really working on agility and like Jeremy said, creating a situation where you're not having DBs that have to come out of the game each and every play.
Yeah.
So. What do you want
So
to move on to?
You want to transition over to a little bit of recruiting, then we'll grab some comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a couple of recruits, that we were tracking, we're going to announce their commitment on the 31st of this month. Basically, tomorrow, you guys know that the barbecue and pool party is going to take place at the University of Texas. It was supposed to be a big recruiting event. I actually think that Daniel Demery may be in here. He's going to attend that event. I saw his name a little bit higher up on the list. But yeah, so 22, 23, and 24 guys are going to be attending. But Derek Brown, the edge rusher out of Texarkana, was scheduled to commit on the 31st. Still looks like he's coming to Texas. And then Jeremy Patton, the linebacker from Tenaha, was also supposed to commit the same day. Unfortunately, it sounds like that Jeremy's not going to come to UT for the barbecue, and there are rumors out there that he's probably going to commit to Michigan.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Clint?
Yeah, I think again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds when it comes to recruiting. Yeah, I think this barbecue is a big deal. I think the announcement of the SEC is going to be a big deal, but I don't think the decision for these kids comes until specifically when you're going to move to the SEC. If you're not moving until 23, it's not going to make a big deal for the guys that you're currently recruiting now. I know there was a question in here: who does it nudge the most? I think that it's not going to nudge anyone, nudge the guys in the 21 class until they know specifically when you're moving into the SEC. Now, if you're moving in 2022, it may nudge some guys. Harris, that's obviously looking at Alabama and Texas. Perkins, who obviously isn't making it this week. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I seen his Instagram. I think his story says that he's in Death Valley, currently at Baton Rouge. That, to me, right now, he spends a lot of time at LSU. So if I was to flip a coin or tell you, hey, where Harold Perkins is go, I think LSU is at the top of the list for Harold Perkins. But definitely Texas, based on what PK's scheme looks like and what PK wants to do with him, I think is a big deal. And then obviously a nudge, if you talking about going to the SEC in 22, I think that is a nudge to him. But yeah, barbecue.
Did you mention Evan Stewart? Did you mention Evan Stewart?
I didn't.
The wide receiver out of Frisco. Yeah. So Evan again recruits. Like, I felt like Jeremy Patton was pretty solid to UT. So, and we've talked to Mike before. It gets harder and harder to pick or where these guys are going to go, because again, it's their moment, and they try really, really hard to confuse the folks at 247, at IIT, at Rivals, to not give them as much information because they don't want them to spoil their moment. That's my sense. But yeah, the guy as good as Frisco Liberty wide receiver Evan Stewart has said, if Texas gets the invite to the SEC, I'm coming to Texas. He's as much said that. So we'll see what happens with Evan Stewart, because again, he's a game changer. Another guy that's in that. I think he's going to end up being the number one. Clint said this many, many times, going to end up being the number one wide receiver in the country in the 22 class. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with Evan Stewart. But I think the SEC nudge could be beneficial with him. Another kid out of Dallas Fort Worth, Devin Campbell. It could help with him. I think he's already. We think he's pretty close to being a Texas lean, but again, moving to the SEC and competing against the best, I don't think will hurt with any recruit in any class. But kids are going to go where they feel like they can play. Kids are going to go where they feel like they're comfortable with the coaching staff. Kids are going to feel comfortable where they feel like coaches can help them become NFL draft picks, and that's something that we continue to say on the show over and over again. It's got to win football games, and you got to produce NFL draft picks to get these guys that seriously consider coming to UT and not Alabama and those places.
Again, we can sit here and talk about, well, it feels like these guys are starting to lean a certain way. They're leaning this way. They're leaning this way. But you got to think about it right now. you have the number 11 class in the nation. You got what, 14 commits at this
14.
time? 14. You probably only got 11 to 12 scholarships still available altogether, and it's July. This football team, this coaching staff hasn't played a down this season, so I wouldn't get too far ahead of that. Yeah, I can tell you that December's way off, and that's the first recruiting. That's the first time that a recruit can sign a letter of intent, and then you'll have an opportunity in February to pick up the pieces. I'm gonna tell you where this SEC piece may help us out as well is the transfer portal. You got to think about it, right? Texas, boom. You got some of these schools that may say, hey, you know what? We don't know what's going to happen with our team. Let's go ahead and throw ourselves in the transfer portal. And you may be able to get some guys in the transfer portal moving into the SEC. And I think right now, if you're looking at what Texas needs the most, it's definitely defensive line and offensive linemen, especially to be able to compete in the trenches where we're going, or could possibly go over the next couple of years. I think that's where you need to be developing that talent. And where I feel right now our defensive line sits, I feel really, really good that our defensive line that we currently have on the 40 acres could do what they needed to in the SEC this year, no doubt, based on what our rotation looks like.
Yeah, they definitely have SEC side bodies. They definitely have SEC athleticism. They need to produce. We need more sacks. We need more tackles for loss. We need, we got a stout. We were really stout against the run last year, but didn't put more pressure on the passer. And in the Big 12, it's hard to do that. A lot of RPOs, quick, 3-step drops. Quarterback gets the ball in their hands, but we got to produce more out of that defensive line. We love the front seven. We've talked about them over and over and over again with Keandre, Tivondre, Alfred, what Clint thinks of Ajomo, just dudes up there, but they got to produce. They like I'm talking about the offensive line need to be 8-9 deep. The defensive line I feel has the best potential to be 8-9 deep. But again, they got to produce. When one walks to the sidelines, the other needs to come in and make plays.
I think what you're looking at, though, is you have Kyle Flood that just came from Alabama in the SEC. You have Bo Davis that came from that coached at Alabama in the SEC. So if anybody knows what a SEC body should look like, you got two guys that come from the champion, the guys that have been on top of college football, for the last 10 years. So if anybody can figure out what they need from an offensive line standpoint or a defensive line standpoint, you currently got the coaches on the 40 acres to be able to do that. Texas Salt Slam Fishing, how do y'all think the Horns will do in the first few years in the SEC? I'll go ahead and let you take this one first, and I'll take it after you, Joe.
You got to tell me, again, when we're going. Are we going 22, 23, 25? I believe we're going 22. Who's the starting quarterback? I'm going to ask you more questions, and I'm going to give you answers. I feel like I saw something today on a board where somebody had projected the 23 offense and who would leave and who would be there. Bijan would still be there. They had Hudson Card as the starting quarterback. I said it a little bit earlier and on the show that we did with Al Studer in the Stewcast that I feel like we could compete with anybody in that conference. Vegas thinks we can compete with anybody in that conference. Again, they think that on a neutral field that we'll be able to hang with anybody currently except A&M, who's 2-point favorite, Georgia, who would be a 2-point favorite, and Alabama, who would be a 10-point favorite. So I think we're going to be able to compete. I'm not willing to give you a record, but I think we'd win more than we lose. Of course, I think you're probably going to find yourself 8-9 wins. Just my. But again, I got to know who's there, and I got to know what the current construct is, and to be able to prognosticate. I don't even feel comfortable about prognosticating for this year. Like we said, we were out of the prediction business a long time ago. But yeah, that's my thoughts initially.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to obviously development of players that are currently on the 40 acres now. And I'm not talking about the guys that are going to be leaving, your juniors and seniors. I'm talking about the guys that are currently freshmen and sophomores. How do they develop? Obviously, our recruiting class, if you look at our recruiting class that we had, as Tom Herman was leaving, didn't obviously leave the cupboard full for this staff moving forward, but the classes before that, we did really well. And I think that's where people kind of get confused at. It's not like Texas has ever had a hard time recruiting players to where they're at currently right now in the Big 12. So to think that they're going to have a hard time recruiting guys moving forward, knowing you're moving into, the best conference in college football with the SEC brand, it'd be crazy to think that Texas can't do better in recruiting. I think this coaching staff recruits really well. You keep hearing, well, they can't close. They finished second for all these guys. But at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. You're going to judge them at the end of the recruiting cycle, not in the middle of the recruiting cycle. And I think winning has a lot to do with that. Development has a lot to do with that. So
I'm going to pop one up here real quick.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll probably scroll up to, because there was a lot of great ones before we got down to here. But Fatman0413 asks, who would you have for the starting five on the offensive line? Well, currently on our depth chart, we have left tackle be Christian Jones, left guard be Junior Angelau, offensive center be Jake Majors, right guard be Denzel Okafor, and right tackle be Derek Kerstetter. And we talked about the position battle we see come to fruition would be probably Isaiah Hookfin pushing for one of those guard positions. And then where do you put Andre Carrick? Because Andre Carrick showed out in the last couple of games that he was playing. So but you have experience in Christian Jones, who Kyle Flood seems to really, really like. And then you got a senior in Derek Kerstetter. So where does Andre Carrick and Isaiah Hookfin fit in that picture? And again, if I got the five I mentioned and those two as their backups, I feel like I got 7 good linemen. And then talk about Tyler Johnson, who played pretty well in the Colorado game. But how did they grow between Colorado and spring and fall to be? Because we talked about the run blocking ability. We feel like they're really good run blockers, but how do they progress in the passing game?
Yeah, and I think that's important because obviously there's going to be obviously play action pass. Really, what the offense is going to come down to is really, Bijan Robinson. Hand the ball to Bijan Robinson and then play action pass, and then probably 12 personnel, and then get your wide receivers one-on-one, which, obviously Sark is really, really good at getting these guys in space one-on-one against matchups that are favorable to the offense against the defense they're playing. So I think moving forward, I think as far as that offensive line goes, to me, it's how have they progressed as far as pass blocking goes? Because we've seen how they've done it as far as run blocking goes. I think it's what is Kyle Flood done to develop them to be able to pass block much better moving into the season.
I'm gonna touch this one.
Okay.
Real quick. Lando7448 asks about Quinn Ewers. Again, when Jaden Blue made the decision to not play his senior season, we said, hey, it's a kid's decision. And in that position, the running back position, I need as much rubber on my tires when they possibly get there, because Steve Sarkisian told you he's going to run Bijan 20 to 30 times a game, and he's going to utilize his best weapons. So when we talked about Jaden Blue, we said, hey, it's a kid's decision. Him and his consultants and his parents made that decision, and they feel that's what's best for Jaden. I feel it kind of the same way with Quinn Ewers. He's not coming to our program, so it's a little less impactful to me than the Jaden Blue decision. But again, it's the kid's decision. If he wants to drop the South Lake Carroll playbook on the ground and pick up the Ohio State playbook and start learning that's from what I understand, he's going to be an early enrollee anyway. So he was only going to be at South Lake Carroll for the fall semester. He only has one class to take. So if he wants to put down the South Lake Carroll playbook and pick up the Ohio State playbook and start making trips to Columbus on the weekends, and if he has the ability to do so, by all means, the kid's decision. And if he was coming to Texas, I would support that decision.
Yeah, there's nothing that I was going to say that you're going to say. To me, it's, hey, if he has an opportunity to roll to the Ohio State University early as an early enrollee and get there now, I don't see anything wrong with it. If he's done everything he needs to do to graduate high school early, then I don't think anybody should be upset with it. I'm pretty sure South Lake Carroll's probably got another quarterback lined up behind him that may probably not be as talented as Quinn Ewers, but that has the arm to get them where they need to go. It's not like South Lake Carroll is limited on talent, from a high school program standpoint. So, but again, it's his decision on what he wants to do, and if that's where he thinks he needs to go, then kudos to you.
Yeah, Mike Roach already did an evaluation on his replacement on 247. Like you said, Clint, he's no Quinn Ewers, but Mike seems to think, and spent some time with him, seems to think he's a pretty good quarterback coming back.
I got Odd Future up here tonight a lot, man. Texas plays best when we match talent for some reason. And I think that's true. For some reason, over the last couple of years, you've been able to match talent for talent. You go and beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. You go beat, and I was actually watching a couple of clips from the USC game where USC came to Austin that night when we beat them, with a block, was a block kick and couple of other big plays, man, there. But to me, it's we've always been played really well against, look at the Oklahoma games, man. They're just as talented as we are. And what is it for the last, I don't know, 5-10 years? It's been less than 7
within
points
a touchdown.
within a touchdown. So that tells you that they can play at that level. The problem is that it seems like over the last couple of years, and I'm just going to talk about the Herman years, is that you play to not lose versus playing to winning. And I think that's the difference. The biggest difference between this coaching staff here and that coaching staff was they're going to play to win. They're going to play to that every time that ball gets snapped, they're going to try to score. And I think they're going to be extremely aggressive, both on the defense and offensive side of the ball. But it's playing to win versus playing not to lose to me. So I think that's where your talent disparity comes in, is that you're playing not to lose versus playing to win.
No, you're perfect. We talked about that. Texas always gets up for the big games, the USCs, the Georgias, consistently, regardless of who the coach was. Texas generally doesn't get blown out by they never get blown out. They're always playing nip and tuck games against great teams, but they're also always playing nip and tuck games against what we consider inferior opponents. So Steve asked, did the new coaches help us get another win or two? Again, we lost 3 games last year by a combined 13 points. We feel like we had a more experienced team last year with Sam coming back. And we felt like we were in a good position to beat Oklahoma last year. Oklahoma got better. Iowa State got better. So I don't know. Maybe let's just win the ones we're supposed to win. Let's beat TCU this year. So I think that will be the win that I guarantee they'll get. And we talked about how TCU is going to be pretty doggone tough with Dugan coming back and with Gary Patterson and the Frosty they're going to play us with, because we left them high and dry when we went to SEC as they see it. But no, maybe one or two. But I say that to say that I believe that we're going to be in those football games with Oklahoma and Iowa State. So, yeah, I mean, can they? Yes. Will they? I'm not so sure.
Let me go back to something real quick, back to this whole talent thing in SEC. And because I said Georgia in the 18 Sugar Bowl, but I kind of want to go back to the Texas Bowl where we beat Missouri, who is also in the SEC. And if you look at it, when has Missouri ever out-recruited Texas if you're looking at rankings? Are they getting the same recruits that Texas is getting? Have they been successful in the SEC? Absolutely. They've won 2 SEC East division champs, I guess is what you would call them. They've had those. When people talk about Texas having the Big 12 record they currently have versus what they're going to have in the Big 12, you kind of got to throw that out the window, because I think things will change, not because you get more talent, but I think you got the coaches necessary to get them to develop to where they need to go. As far as one,
I'm gonna pop.
Go ahead.
I do want to pop this question up for Al Studer, but finish your thought. You had something else to say.
No, as far as those 1 or 2 losses, again, you had some of those losses could have went both ways. Texas Tech, Lubbock, onside kick. Hell, that could have been another loss.
Definitely.
So I don't want to look at just those 3 losses that could have been wins. But what about the ones that could have been losses? To me, absolutely, you could have gone probably 500 if you would have probably coin flipped the other ones. Versus going 7-3, but at the same time, do I think this coaching staff and Sark calling the offensive plays and PK being the defensive coordinator, who over the last 10 years hasn't given up more than a couple of games over 21 points? Does he have more talent here at Texas than he's had at Washington? Absolutely. But if you go look at Washington now, what they've developed at Washington, you're talking about a top 10 football team going into next season. So absolutely, do I think this team can gain 1 or 2 wins? Absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't gain 3 wins from last season.
So Al says, I didn't think to ask this on our podcast, but is this year more about installing a new plan and player evaluation, with next year or year 3 being the real expectations of success? Al, I feel like when we talked to you, we gave you our predictions, and you know what they are. We cut them out of ours because we're going to do another show that talks about those things. But I have Texas school in 10-2. So yeah, are we installing a new plan? Absolutely. Are these coaches going to continue to evaluate players as they go forward to see who's what I consider championship level? Because that's what you're doing. You're moving the depth chart up and down on player performance, and they haven't seen any of these guys play a game under their leadership. So. Again, yeah, coaches are going to do that regardless. They're going to continue to install game plans week to week to week to game plan opponents. and they're also going to be doing player evaluation practice to practice, game to game, in order to set that depth chart to give themselves the best chance to win. So yeah, but here at Texas, not winning is the or not losing is the expectation. You're supposed to compete with everybody. My thoughts.
And again, it comes down to talent. If you go back to the talent, if you look at what you've recruited over the last couple of years, minus last year in this transition class that Tom Herman had, if you look at every other team in the Big 12 and what they've recruited over the last, the same time frame, Oklahoma may have out-recruited you a couple of years there. You know what I'm saying? So you should have the same talent level if you go look at blue chip ratio that Oklahoma has, right? But that blue chip ratio is not going to match these other schools. Don't have the same blue chip ratio. So to me, it's not a rebuilding year. It's we got to go forward year. Do I think that installing new systems is difficult? Absolutely. But I think he came into January. He gave them the big book on the offensive side of the ball. They've had spring to kind of figure it out. I think fall is where you get into the details of it. You figure out what your team can do and what they can't do. But I think from a expectation standpoint, we're not a rebuild year. We're ready to go, move forward, and try to win a Big 12 championship like we would any other year this year. But yeah, after 3 years of recruiting classes, where your team, where a coach should see his team be the best after 3 years of recruiting their own players. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because we were I'll go back to last year where we were in every football game, and I think we have a better coaching staff. We have a more experienced football team at every position. That offensive line I talked about was the same offensive line that we had last year. You slid Kerstetter out to right tackle and you put Majors in as center, but it's the same offensive line. These guys have played together for a full year. Whittington's experience, Moore's experience. Troy O'Meara's been in the program for a couple of years now. He didn't get to play last year because of the ACL. The defense, we've already talked about the depth we feel like they have in the front seven. So yeah, somebody's talking about the ceiling is 10-2 and the floor is 8-4. I kind of see it as the ceiling could, again, I think you could consistently compete with Iowa State and Oklahoma. So I see the ceiling being greater than 10-2, and I kind of want to see the floor being 10-2. But that's just where I'm at right now. Trying to be reasonable with my burnt orange glasses, but then again, looking at the roster and trying to make an assessment with where I think we're going to be. And Clint kind of talked about it when we first started the show. I'm by myself, so the dogs are in here with me. So Jazz is seeing something outside she doesn't like. So apologize for the barking.
Got a comment from Mike Moore. I can't wait for Texas to get Georgia, Mississippi State, Bama, LSU in a 28-game span. Neither can we. To me, we love college. I'm a college football fan through and through. I watch college football from either Fox and College Game Day all the way until pretty much the last good game is on that Saturday. So for me, I can tell you, and I think I'm going to speak for probably 90% of the other Texas Longhorn fans. I don't think we can't not wait to see playing Georgia, Mississippi State, Bama, and LSU. We know it's going to be tough. If you think that you're again, we've said it umpteen thousand times on this channel that the SEC is the cream of crop in college football. Hell, the SEC West is the best division in all of college football. And hopefully you get to put yourself in that middle of that. And then you got to show up each and every week and play each and every week. There is no off weeks other than if you're playing an FCS school, which the SEC is known for. So
yeah. So I don't know if you follow us on Twitter, Mike, but I shot a picture. I happen to be on vacation until the 3rd of August. And I spent yesterday and today watching I immediately turned my mind off the Big 12 and went directly to the SEC. I have watched every spring game for every SEC team minus Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and South Carolina at this point. And it started yesterday at noon. And I plan to watch those either tonight or tomorrow. So that competition that Clint's talking about, the reason why we're excited, this channel's excited to move to the SEC is the quality of football. Again, yes, is it going to help in our recruiting, which is the lifeblood of our program? When we wear that SEC patch, when we take off the Big 12 and put that one on, we believe so. But again, it's going to be a quality game each and every week. And if that's the gauntlet we have to run through, again, you got to strap on your helmet, put on your shoulder pads, and walk out there because 2 games are going to be at DKR. So we're going to get an opportunity to see great football games in Austin. And then the other 2 will be on the road. And like you say, these SEC stadiums and game day experiences hit different than any other place in the country. We acknowledge that and are excited to get after it.
Oh, absolutely. I want to go down here real quick. I did.
Can I do a promo real quick?
Absolutely.
I know you're watching it, so I don't know how many likes we have, But currently we have 129 people in here. Great Longhorn fans, may or may not, maybe some SEC fans. If you're new to the channel, please give us a horns up so we can recognize you, number one. And then number two, if you have not hit that like button or the subscribe button, please do that as well. And also, don't forget to hit that notification bell. We're really bad about that. Like, we want you guys, we've been on probably 4 or 5 times in the last 6 days. We want you guys to know when we're coming on. We know we're competing with the draft tonight, the NBA draft. We know we're competing with the Gold Cup semifinals because that's what my mind's going to be on as soon as we get off here. But please hit that subscribe button, the like button, and notification bell, and tell other folks about Texas Football Talk. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That was good, dude, because, we forget about it. I'm tired. It's been a long week. I think it's been a long week for everybody, but I think it's going to culminate in a vote from the Regents tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock that it's going to be official that Texas is going to be moving to the SEC. It'd be crazy if it didn't. Oh, my goodness. You imagine that? And then, obviously, a barbecue that's going to happen tomorrow to close out, I think, really our recruiting for the summer. And then I think you're 28 days from high school football, Texas high school football in the state, 28 days, which is really exciting. I can tell you that me and my wife, boom, shooting down to the local high school here where we live at. We'll be there on Friday night. So you probably won't get much action from me and Jeremy on Friday nights. I think Jeremy will probably head out to some spots around where he lives at to see some high school football action as well. So
the first game is going to be against 2 guys that are going to be at the barbecue. Connor Robertson representing Austin Westlake, and then Mikhail Harrison Pilot from Temple, because that's the first high school game I'm going to hit. It's going to be Temple versus Austin Westlake. And again, forgive the barking. I got a young Jazz down here with me.
No, it's funny because Mike Sproul says it's amazing all this happened in 9 days. It's pre-po, man. All this stuff was pre-po. Lawyers been talking to lawyers on top of lawyers for probably who knows what the real story is. I eventually maybe do a 30-30 on this, on what the real story is, and how it came about. Was it Oklahoma reaching out to the SEC? Was it Texas reaching out to the SEC? Hell, did ESPN have some involvement in it that pissed the Big 12 off? I think eventually you'll probably, in 10, 15, 20 years, you may see a 30-30. Oklahoma, Texas abandons the Big 12 and heads to the SEC. It's probably what the title's going to be. And if not, that's probably a good one. So, it happened. It happened, and it happened fast, and it's gonna be real tomorrow. 100% real tomorrow. So
yeah, better recruits, better coaches, better conference. Steve hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what the SEC gives us is the opportunity to get better recruits. We have the better coaches, and we're moving to a better conference. Yeah. And then somebody already answered it, but Reuben Owens is making an announcement at 9 o'clock tonight. We don't expect for him to recommit to the University of Texas. Again, he's been all over the country. Just left the state of Georgia yesterday, where he was looking at, the University of Georgia and then with the Georgia Tech. What we do anticipate Reuben's committing to is his All-American Bowl commitment. So that's what we anticipate for Reuben in his 9 o'clock announcement, but we'll see.
I think everything's surprised at this particular point.
Yeah,
I can tell you that you can do all the Instagram lives you want. You can do you can follow these guys on Twitter. You can follow these guys all over the place, but you never, ever, 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 ever really know 100% what they're going to do. Hell, I can put a crystal ball in today, and it got it again. Think about what Texas and Oklahoma's done to the Big 12 over the last year. In having conversations about moving forward in the Big 12, but really behind the scenes, they've talked about, talking to the SEC about moving to the SEC. I think these high school football players, when it comes to recruiting, are doing the same thing to all these really recruiting services, because all of them been off. Where you'd see somebody put a crystal ball in for an 8, meaning probably about 80% that they're going to come, are now like 20 or 30 because they're not sure. But at the same time, me as if I had an opportunity to go Division I and I was being recruited by 30 schools, I'd probably throw people off the trail just so that you're not stealing my thunder when it's time for me to pull the trigger. So I think that's what's happening right now. So
yeah, 100%. And the recruiting analysts that we bring on the show, Mike Roach and Nick Harris, will tell you just that it's going to become harder for them to do their job because these kids don't want their announcement made for them. They want to make it themselves. And normally what it used to happen was, before all this edit business and these recruiting little documentary films, is the cat would get let out of the bag. And these kids are trying really, really hard to allow their day to be their day. But just like clockwork, Scott Sheridan in here with the super chat. Hey, guys, hook 'em. Does Texas use Charles Wright to get mop-up duty over the number one quarterback, whoever that is? Perhaps a good time to get your third string some real game snaps. Rice is probably the only opportunity unless we get all gas, no breaks in conference. Again, you want – if the competition between Hudson Card and Casey Thompson is as close as we think it is, then you're going to want to see whoever go out there and perform. But then when the other guy can get some snaps, you want to see him get those reps versus Charles Wright. But we've had Charles on the show. He's a great kid. Love him to death. Very polite young man. Very smart young man. Grew up a Texas fan. What do you say? He lives next about a mile and a half from campus. So we want Charles to do great. But I think the opportunities for Charles to get playing time are probably going to be against Rice, Kansas, and any other time. We truly give them all gas, no breaks.
Yeah, I'll answer too. I think that what it is, it comes down to obviously Case Thompson, Hudson Card are going to get the majority of the snaps. And I think if you're not playing Case Thompson, you probably need to get Hudson Card. And that just comes down to snaps, and it gives them an opportunity to get an opportunity to run the offense, one, with hopefully, the twos. At the same time, have an opportunity to work in with the wide receivers, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to lose one and then all of a sudden number two is not ready to play.
Exactly.
I think you're right. I think Jeremy's right. If you're going to see it, it's going to happen. It's going to happen with Rice on September 18th. But we'd love to see obviously Wood get in. We did an interview with him, before, right after he committed this last year. Wonderful kid. He's not afraid of getting out there and competing. One of the reasons he went to University of Texas, he already knew it was there, but he was going to go there and compete anyway. He said, I'm going to pick up a suitcase, walk across the street from my house to University of Texas and get ready to ball. And he was an early enrollee as well. So he's been there. He's been there for a while. So I'm pretty sure that he's had an opportunity to kind of pick up the system. But again, coming from high school level where he's at, I think Austin High is where he played at, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Obviously college and trying to pick up Sark's big book of all of his plays is probably going to be something he's never seen before. So, and
we talked about it. He was originally an Iowa State commit. So Matt, he's a dang good quarterback in his own right. Matt Campbell wanted him to come up there and replace a guy like Brock Purdy, who's pretty doggone outstanding. And we went back and watched a lot of film of Charles. Charles, a doggone good quarterback who's going to, like you say, go in there and compete for the job. He's not handing anybody anything. But at the same time, if it's truly Hudson Card and Casey Thompson that have, separated themselves, then I see them getting a predominant amount of snaps next year, minus Rice and maybe Kansas.
Jeffrey K here, man. Hook 'em, brother. So question about wide receivers last year in Sark's offense. Only 3 wide receivers have big minutes with big numbers. Do you see him sticking with the same system, or is he going to be trial and error?
All gas, no breaks. Whoever's making plays. He's looking to bust big ones, and if it happens to be Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, and Troy O'Meara, or if it's Joshua Moore, or if it's Kelvonte Dick, whoever's making plays is going to play. Whoever's standing out in practice is going to play. And I don't see the rotation. Like if you're making plays in the game, unless you're tired and need to come off the field, I don't see him yanking you off the field.
Yeah, biggest thing with his wide receivers is every wide receiver should know the same route tree, because there is no difference between. It's kind of positionless wide receivers. An X is not an X, a Y is not a Y, and a Z is not a Z. Obviously, they'll line up in specific packages, but each one of them should be able to run each route tree from whatever position they're currently playing. The other thing is, Jeremy's right. Rotational football, I think, is over. I used to look at the Pro Football Focus snap sheets, how many snaps that each player got, both on the offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball last year. And that list would go on forever and ever and ever. I don't think you're going to see that from this staff. Big boys probably need to rotate on the defensive side of the ball. But other than that, you're probably not going to see a bunch of rotation from either the running backs, wide receivers, defensive backs, or any of those things. I think the big boys on the defensive side of the ball probably receive the most of the rotation. So definitely excited about that, though. Definitely excited.
All right, got one more.
Yeah.
The one right underneath him. And if Card – so Glenn is assuming that Casey's the starter. And if Card comes in mop-up duty and starts ripping it, does he at some point replace Casey? Absolutely not. If Casey's going to be the starter and Casey's ripping it, which allowed you to get to mop-up duty, I don't think Card's performance in mop-up duty would then caused the coaching staff, AJ Milwee, Steve Sarkisian, to replace their starter, who obviously was ripping it in game to allow the second guy to get in. Your thoughts, Clint?
If Carter comes in a mop up and starts ripping it, does he replace Casey? No, I think Casey. Obviously, there's got to be a big disparity before. I think I'm going to say big. There has to be a reason that Sark's going to replace Casey for Hudson at that particular point, because if he replaces Casey, he's got to know that Hudson is going to be his guy moving forward. He's not going to replace Hudson. He's not going to replace Hudson again with Casey. Does that make sense? Because he's not in a 2-quarterback scheme. So if he ever replaces Casey, we know that Casey is going to be sitting on the bench for the rest of the year, and Hudson is going to be your starting quarterback moving forward. Outside of obviously mop up duty when you're trying to get your number 2 quarterback in there. So I was going to try to find Phil Steele's where he had our wide receivers ranked at. It was really, really, really high. And I think one of those reasons is because obviously Steve Sarkisian's offense and what he's been able to do with wide receivers over the last couple of years. But I think he had us ranked as far as our wide receiver goes. Let me see here if I can find it. Receivers, he currently has us ranked 9th best receiving room in the country behind Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, Oregon, Texas A&M. And I think that has a lot to do with their tight ends there that they have, which they do have some talented tight ends there at the school out east. USC, Miami, Florida, Iowa State, again, tight ends, and then Texas, which is really, really high if you think about it. And I kind of trust what Phil Steele puts out, because Phil Steele had Texas A&M finishing 5th in the country last year. Me and Jeremy did a whole podcast on his rankings, and he was pretty damn close to where he had people finishing at. So
I want to go back to Scott's question, because he followed it up. To your point, Jeremy, why waste mop-up duty on Hudson when Wright could get some time? Just a thought. Again, because I need my second guy to get repetitions in the game plan, because just in case Casey got hurt, I need him to have game reps. Practice reps are great and all, but I need him facing a defensive line or linebacker core that's bearing down on him. Let's just say he got reps during Rice, and then all of a sudden Casey has to go out of the game, because unfortunately, me and Clint were talking about it again today. COVID's real. Now, I'm not sure what the status is of the football players on the football team and their current vaccination status and all that stuff. But let's just say that Hudson was needed later on in the season. I need him to play in football games to ease my mind that he's comfortable and ready to go. That would be why I would not go from first to third, but need to go from first to second string quarterback when talking about mop-up duty. Now, again, if you're talking Casey and the team hops up on Rice 4 touchdowns and it's a 28-point lead at halftime, and then Hudson comes out for the third quarter and puts another 2 touchdowns on the board, by all means, if that fourth quarter you got a 42-point lead, let Charles Wright get in there and zip it. Let him do his doggone thing. But the first guy coming in the game should be the second team guy.
Yeah, and I got to go up here and see who it was, but they said it about as good as you can say it. Lando 7448. Hard is the future. Hard. Hudson Card. I mean, he said hard. Hudson Card is the future. Meaning that hopefully Casey Thompson plays so well this year that he finds himself, that Steve Sarkisian puts him in a position that he did Mac Jones last year, very, very high in the draft. That's what we want to see from Casey Thompson, honestly. You want this guy that's been here on the 40 acres to play himself into a high draft pick so that Hudson Card becomes the future of the football program moving into, hopefully, the SEC moving forward. But you got some talented guys, man. You're talking about a guy that's 6'3", 240 pounds. It's currently maybe bigger than that, 6'4", 6'5", 240-pound quarterback out of California that's probably going to lead you into the SEC as well. In Malik Murphy, big dude. Guys don't want to hit big guys like that. So
no.
that has a NFL caliber arm.
I've comped him just from watching him get beat up last year. Again, we've talked about lack of receivers and lack of offensive line at Junipero Serra, where he plays high school ball, and we think it would be beneficial for Malik to come to Texas his senior year. But again, he's a team guy. He's a loyal guy. He wants to end his career with guys that he started with there in California. But watching guys hang off his legs, it reminds me a lot of Ben Roethlisberger, especially with that arm strength that he has. So Fat Man gets a second question. Fat Man 0413. Lots of talk about Ojoma and Broughton looking good in the spring. Does Alfred Collins still start? We don't have Alfred Collins starting. Our front four is currently as I look at my depth chart, Jones is your jack, or I'm sorry, Ray Thornton is your jack. Jones is your opposite side defensive end. Your nose tackle is currently Keandre Coburn, and Moro Ojomo is your starter, according to Clint in his depth chart. So, yeah, we're really high on Moro Ojomo. Again, he's a 19-year-old. Would you say a 19-year-old junior?
19-year-old junior, yeah.
With a lot of game experience. So, but again, we want this defensive line, regardless of who starts, to be this is the one position we want constant rotation and constant production from. Like I said, when one guy goes off the field, when Coburn goes off the field and T Sweat comes in, that there's no drop off in talent, from the first to second. Now, of course, there's got to be a little bit of degrading talent because the guy wouldn't be starting over the other guy. But our sense is we want as many big guys on that defensive line because that's the model in the SEC. As many big, fast, quick twitch guys you can put on that defensive line and rotate them in and out is what you want when you're talking about the defensive line.
Yeah, so really quick, I'll get to that one. Yeah, Moro Ojomo is my breakout guy. 19 years old. If you haven't heard me say this before, 247 did an article on him a couple of years ago when he came out of high school. Is the best 17-year-old football player in the country. And you got to think about it. If he probably would have came out in his same age group, he probably would have been top 5, top 10, football players in the country when he came out. And I always say this: DeMarvin Leal is a 21-year-old junior that's at Texas A&M. Moro Ojomo was a 19-year-old junior that's at Texas. He had to fit into his body. He had to get that maturity. And I tell you, I think it's spring game. What he did in the spring game, how he was able to interrupt the sacks that he got, against a pretty good offensive line as we see it. So I think the sky's the limits for Moro Ojomo, but again, it's rotation. You're not going to see one guy may start, but at the end of the day, you're going to see 3 down linemen, 4 down linemen. Hell, you make six down linemen all at one time. So I don't think it really matters who starts on the defensive line. I think you'll get a lot of play from everybody.
This has been an awesome show, and I know we started it saying it's probably going to be an abbreviated edition since I was babysitting the dogs. But there are 153 folks in here, man. This is awesome for a night when you're competing with the NBA draft, when you're competing with the Gold Cup semifinal and Major League Baseball's trade deadline and a whole lot of other stuff going on. Really appreciate you guys that are in here. Again, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, and the reason why I'm asking that is because we obviously got a lot of SEC fans. Got some Bama in here, got some Ole Miss in here. So yeah, please represent your school. We're excited to come play you. But yeah, let us know where you're from and who you support. And we'll see you over the next, looks like 30, 40, 50 years of my lifetime playing in the SEC. So really appreciate your attendance tonight.
I love it, man, because all you've heard is a lot of negative talk about, SEC fans don't want Texas, Oklahoma to join them. There's been a lot of bad blood between Texas and some of the schools in the SEC. I can tell you from us who are fanatics of University of Texas football and the guys that are listening tonight from the SEC or SEC fans, man, we're super excited. I can tell you at the end of the day, yeah, we're just as fanatical about our football team as you are. But I can tell you this from me and Jeremy here at Texas Football Talk. We look at it as one of 16 teams going over there to that badass conference and having an opportunity to play hotty toddy, because you got somebody from in here from Ole Miss, a couple of guys in here from Bama. Definitely excited about that, man. Y'all got the best.
Got to go Tigers.
Look, we were going to put you on the schedule anyway in 22 and 23, Alabama. You know what I'm saying? So hey, we may still play you. I don't know what's going to happen with the schedule if we move there in 22, how they're going to move that around. But definitely excited to play, have an opportunity to play in the SEC as of hopefully 9:15 tomorrow morning when the region's voted in. But definitely excited. And I'm glad you're joining us, man. It makes me really excited about it, because it feels like, if you go to these boards and you listen to Twitter and you look at these things, it's really, really bad. But at the end of the day, Texas and Oklahoma are two blue bloods, man, in college football, and some of the winningest programs in college football, and have won national titles, not at the rate that Alabama has won them. But at the same time, really, really excited to go play those guys, man, down in the Southeastern Conference, man. Road trips galore. Sorry, man. I'm excited.
Kobe, I haven't eaten yet. Man, will help me, but he's like, y'all got to give us I think we glitched out there for a second. Y'all got to give us at least 30 more minutes. We went up to over 150 on the live. Yeah, brother. We appreciate your attendance, and I think the Gremlins are trying to kick us off.
Yeah, they are, man. Got Go Tigers in here tonight, man. Got some LSU folks in here, man. So really, really, really excited. SEC. Lando said SEC wants the competition. Meanwhile, Bowlesby's scared to allow us to do it. But we'll kind of see where it goes, man. But it's been a hell of a show tonight. I wish I could give you 30 more minutes. My mother-in-law just flew into town tonight because it's always good when Clint and Mike Roach go out of town because we usually get a commit or two. I actually leave for Mexico. Mike Roach will be in Mexico as well next week. But we'll be doing shows from probably my hotel room a couple of times. Hopefully we get some commits. We'll do some of those shows. We'll probably get on there for a few minutes while I am in Mexico enjoying vacation. So go ahead, Jeremy.
Show's going to explode going forward. That's what they're saying. That's what Scott's saying. We hope so. Like I said, Clint talked about it a little earlier, and I just said it a minute ago. Like, I've watched 13 SEC spring games over the last 2 days. I have been on Dog Sports. I have been on Jordy Kalat. Like, we are immersing ourselves into the SEC culture. We've been on their shows, commenting just like their guys are over here. We're fired up. Abel says CDC, CDC, CDC. I actually wrote that to Dog Sports today. Kevin, I always mess up his name. Elfite, Jay Hartzell, Chris Del Conte, doing their doggone thing since they become a trio of getting Texas sports where it needs to go with the infrastructure and this move, of course, and the hiring of Steve Sarkisian, the hiring of Chris Beard, the hiring of all these phenomenal coaches that we now have in the UT sports, department. Hell of a job by those three.
Absolutely, man. That's what it's all about. To me, our administration that we currently have right now, it's they are trying to get Texas football where they were before. I'm not going to say that, the B word, where they where they've previously been before, man. And that's what's super excited moving forward. But hey, I got to let Jeremy go. He's got to go grocery shopping for those 6 items on his list. I got to go before I get beat up by my wife, because my mother-in-law just showed up from the airport. But y'all have a wonderful night. Hey, if you have not hit that like button, please hit that like button. If you have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you have not hit that notification bell, please hit that notification bell. I'm telling you, me and Jeremy are going to put out a lot of content moving forward now until, obviously there is no off season for us. We figured out that this year, but we appreciate you being with us as always. You can find us on Twitter at Texas Football Talk, on Instagram at Texas Football Talk, and on Facebook at Texas Football Talk. And hook 'em.
Hook 'em.